Now, there's a huge debate going on around electric vehicles. I mean, I have said over and over and over again, I'm not a fan of electric cars, and I believe we are having them pushed on us too early when the infrastructure is not there to back them up. One of the country's largest electric vehicle charging providers, and this is very interesting, has now increased charging prices by a whopping 40%. So are electric vehicles cheaper to run, particularly if you're on a road trip, relying on public chargers? One man has put this all to the test. He's one of the smartest blokes in Australia. Alborz Fallah is the founder of carexpert.com.au. I follow him on Twitter and he drives some magnificent vehicles. Most of them, I should say, that he owns are full of petrol. Alborz, which cars did you use and where'd you go?
Oh, thanks for the kind words, mate. Look, we used actually two near identical cars, so two BMW 7 Series, one an electric and one a petrol-powered car, and we drove them from Melbourne to Sydney. So pretty much a standard road trip that most families would do, or most people would do at least once or twice in their life.
Which one was cheaper to run?
What do you think, mate? You know what? We were a bit surprised. We were a little bit surprised because there's a lot of talk out there about electric cars being a lot cheaper to own and to run. But in this case, after 900 kilometres of driving, if you can believe it, the petrol-powered car, which was actually using premium 98 RON fuel, was about $14 cheaper to get all the way from Melbourne to Sydney. And most importantly, if you take the time it took us to charge the electric car as well, it was also 2 hours quicker, which is crazy.
That's crazy stuff. I mean, did that even? I know you're a huge fan of conventional petrol-powered vehicles, but did that even surprise you, that result?
Yeah, look, it surprised us a bit. As you mentioned, the cost of electricity for these cars has gone up quite a lot. And I have to point out that we did this test before that 40% increase that you're talking about. So if we were to do it again now, there's a very good chance that it would actually be quite substantially more expensive. And actually, if anything, petrol prices have come down since we did this as well. So yes, it was quite surprising. Now, it's fair to say that if you were doing this test in the city, a lot of start-stop traffic, that may have been a different result. But for us, it was really important to, one, use cars that are very similar, except for the powertrain, and also do a road trip that a lot of people will have to do at some point in their life to demonstrate, one, the lack of infrastructure in many respects, how expensive it is to charge an electric car at the moment, but also just how far internal combustion engines have come in terms of efficiency. Because we've got this massive car that weighs over 2 tons, this BMW 7 Series petrol car, which is 600 kilograms lighter than the electric car, and it still managed to use just 6 litres per 100 kilometres, which is, it goes to show you just how far the technology has come in the internal combustion engine.
Yeah, and it sounds much better. That's one thing we should point out. I've spoken to your colleague Paul Marrick a lot of times about the chargers. Did you find any of them that are actually working, or were you still turning up at charging stations and finding busted EV chargers?
Well, if you could believe it, we actually did this test during the Optus, when they had the blackout, and we didn't realize this, obviously, but a lot of those charging stations use the Optus network for payments and things, so that pretty much most of them weren't working. We were quite fortunate to find 1 or 2 that did work and that probably weren't using the Optus network. And it's important to point out that a lot of these chargers are using government money for infrastructure, and they really are quite unreliable. So as a taxpayer, you sort of have to go, there's no oversight for how these things work. And although we're paying for them, and no one's going and making sure they're actually working and the delivery of these charges is actually accurate and proper, because if it's taxpayer spent money, then we want to make sure that they actually work.
Alborz, I mean, the other thing is that many people were convinced to go and buy electric vehicles and didn't even realise they actually had to pay for the charging.
Yes, well, a lot of car companies do try and subsidise, and it is a lot cheaper to charge at home if you're willing to wait, like that 12-hour period or longer in some cases for your car to charge at home. And if you do just do normal small commutes, it does work. But for a lot of us that do, a lot of kilometres every week or intend to do road trips, the standard internal combustion engine certainly still makes a lot of sense.
Alborz Fallah, always great to catch up with you, my friend. Carexpert.com.au if you're in the market for a brand new vehicle.